All right, it's 4 o'clock on Thursday. It's time for the Real Estate Happy Hour show. Hey, look, I'm by myself today. David Arnette is having nothing but a good time, as the song says, right? Nothing but a good time. He is on the golf course, doing some business out there. Man, what a week, huh? Slocum, the Alabama Hammer, how are you? Always having a good time. Big Poison fan, too, I'm sure. Anyway, wanted to just catch up with everybody and talk about, man, hey, interest rates and the market are all hot right now. I tell you, the problem we're continuing to have is that inventory. Inventory's all-time lows, really, relative to the season. And I think we're seeing that all over the state, really. And with interest rate, the big issue right now is that rates are continuing to fall. Inventories are shrinking. There's a lot of buyers out there, although there is some indication, as we talked about last week, that we're probably hitting a peak in buyer demand for the summer at least, and which is going to be really interesting considering interest rates are headed lower, which is just crazy. Todd Powell, how are you? Glad you could tune in. But, you know, it's one of those things that is just really crazy because, you know, mortgage applications rose 1.3% last week. Really interesting aspect of that is, while the number, you know, of resale went down, applications went down, going up at a much faster rate are the refinance applications. They are way up because of these lower interest rates and finally getting to a point where I think that you're going to start seeing a lot of folks coming in saying, look, I was in the high fours. Now things have changed. I've made a little bit more money and on a regular basis, and we're ready to get this home refi at a lower interest rate where it makes sense because we're going to stay in the house a lot longer. So there is that. Let's say, interestingly enough, rates right now, 30-year fixed sitting about 3.84%. And the 15-year fixed holding steady from the last few weeks at 3.25%. Fascinating, huh? Who would have ever thought about it? I often think about my grandfather talking about those 14 to 18% loans that he took out, or probably even higher than that, but in the late 70s. And look where we are today. Crazy, crazy stuff. Anyway, so not much going on in the news, huh? Quite frankly, a lot. We're going to get to the personal finance and stock stuff in here in a little bit. I know Trump's over at the G20 summit. Watch that for any news out of that on that tariff issue. Should help the equities market, meaning stocks and that sort of thing, because I know we oftentimes talk about the bond market here relative to interest rates. So we'll be watching that over the next week. One thing we're going to talk about today is 10 projects. We're getting a lot of folks that still want to buy that fixer-upper. It's the big thing from the TV shows. I mean, hey, the most popular show probably in the history of the real estate world, other than House Hunters, would probably be the show Fixer-Upper with Joanna and Chip Gaines. Boy, they have turned that into an empire down in Waco. And look, you can oftentimes what appears to be a good deal on a fixer-upper, you go, man, that is what we want because we can make it into what we need. And oftentimes they spend a little bit too much money on that and they blow that budget. And there's really about 10 projects that can really send that over. And what we're talking about when we say blowing the budget is that when they could have just spent more money, they got a great deal on that fixer-upper, but they decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to fix up that house and spend money to get it back to a certain level. They could have just bought a house on the resale market, in some cases built, but they could have done it and actually spent the same amount of money with less headache, or they actually blew the budget. What's interestingly enough is that when the National Association of Realtors surveyed around the country thousands of folks that had actually done this, the average amount of money that they overspent on the fixer-upper was about $25,000 over what they could have spent had they just bought a resale to get the exact same house. So it probably will save you a little bit of money sometimes. Jay Day, what's going on, my friend? The best agent in all of the, golly, it's hard to say where you're in Baltimore, Maryland, D.C., Virginia, all that area up there, everywhere but Delaware probably. But one of the best agents in the country, Jay Day, and a great conservative to boot. How's the market up there, Jay? Oh, West Virginia. You're in West Virginia, too. I mean, wow. Jay, you're everywhere. Jay's one of these guys that, man, has built an incredible business, a very customer-centric business up there. And if you, what's your web address, Jay? Let's say so we can make sure everybody knows it up there. You are busy, I'm sure. Mark Carlisle, how are you? Good to see you. Let's see what. But anyway, Jay is a good friend of not only the podcast but also the show. The Day Home Team up there. I just listed the states. He's everywhere he wants to be. Norm, what's happening? One of the great sports journalists in Virginia. How are you? Good to see you. Anyway, getting back to these fixer-upper blowing the budget. Here are the 10 projects where really finding that these buyers are overspending, and you need to factor it in when you're buying that fixer-upper. The first one, the new HVAC system. You think, you know what we're going to do? We're going to redo this house, and, we're going to budget based on what our previous knowledge of putting an HVAC system in is. And the only problem is, a lot of times, especially with the older houses, it's not just the unit that's got to be replaced. It's a lot of the systems, sometimes the ductwork, a lot of the fittings don't fit, the entire system. You need to really make sure you know what you're getting into if that HVAC system has to be replaced. Also, mismatched systems come into play. A furnace may be okay, but guess what? The efficiency is going to go down because the outside system's the new system. The other thing you got to worry about right now, because next year we're turning a leaf on the type of Freon that's going to be used. Well, the old Freon is going to be unavailable on the resale market, and a lot of these guys, we're going to be left with what we got on the old Freon. So be real careful there. Plumbing. Look, what you really need to make sure you get a great home inspector on these fixer-uppers, because not only do you need to know what needs to be fixed, but what will have to be done when we reroute plumbing, we move in walls. A lot of times we end up in situations where it's just not easy to get plumbing to a certain part of the house where you need it to be. You want, some reason, a bar right in the middle. Who doesn't want a bar right in the middle of a great room or whatever? But for whatever reason, you want it right in the middle of the house. You got to run that pipe from somewhere, especially if you don't have a basement. Mark Carlisle says we should invest in stockpiles of Freon. Yes. I don't know if it's legal, but hey, that's true. The other thing is, be real careful as you're renovating these houses especially if you have the old copper pipes. The crackheads love to come in and ruin your day and your insurance rates along with it. And so be careful on that. The next one, finishing a basement. Look, there's all levels of finishing a house and really a basement, right? A basement can go a million different directions in terms of finishes. Do we go with a drop ceiling? But no, you get in the process and you go, you know what? I really don't want to drop ceiling anymore, so I'm going to spend a little bit more. I'm going to make sure we've completely finished that. You know what? Now I need 18 can lights in the basement. Guess what? There's more money. Believe me, electrical and plumbing, great folks in those trades, but boy, some of the richest clients I've ever had were in those trades. So just know that can get out of hand. The next one is really important, bathroom renovations. Bathrooms can go a million different ways. If it's a complete blowout and you know it going in, make sure you've budgeted correctly, because by the time you get into that showroom, you see that clawfoot tub you've always wanted, and you got to take down this shower and build a new shower. All this stuff can run into the thousands and thousands of dollars, and it'll help you blow that budget. So make sure you know going in what that is as you get that fixer-upper. The next one is new appliances. Hey, it's just like me in a Best Buy store. Let's see. Here we go. Mike, we got a question here. Do you count the basement square footage and total square footage of a house, and what qualifies as a basement? Well, basement is below grade, Slocum. That's a great question about basement square footage and total square foot of a house. Now, the way that a appraiser really looks at square footage is he goes to the main levels and all levels above the main level and arrives at a per square foot price. Then, while it's not counted in the same way from a value standpoint, he will take a discounted rate. So if he came up to $100 a foot value on the main level and the second level, or in your case, the third and fourth level probably, the basement level is going to get a discount based on levels of finishes, all the good stuff, right? So if it's really pimped out, you may get 75% value. So if it's 100, he's going to apply 75 percent of the value of the square footage down below. It really comes down to value. While it's counted and valued at a discount rate. What if you enter the house on one grade, but the other side of the house is on another grade? Interesting. So that is a great question that we'll have to ask Tom Horn or one of these other appraisers. Obviously, that is just a fascinating question. So you got, if Jay Day's still on here, he may be able to help us here too. So basically you come in, there should be a main level of a house, right, Slocum? And then one of them's going to be a walkout of some kind. There you go. If any of it's buried, it's still a basement. So at some point, some of that's going to have to be above grade. So it's going to be valued and that way. Of course it is. My house is absolutely. Wow, and you got a nice new pool too. 4 levels. Wow. So Jay, did they take a discounted rate, I assume, at some point? So did you have 2 above and 2 below on that? 2 levels. We're talking about basements. And that, let's see what Jay says about that. Because, see, there you go. There's your answer, Slocum. That you really have 2 levels of, 3 above. So 3 was considered above, 1 below. So the level that had the highest point, that touched the highest point, was counted as the main level than everything above. So, but he still gets value for that. And I think really, ultimately, that's what we care about as consumers, is that amount there. But again, those renovations matter when in blowing that budget. Next one we're talking about is the new appliances. Really, folks, this is a place. It's a, do you need the Viking or do you want the Viking? Do you want that Gen Air or do you need the Gen Air? Look, I can't tell you. First of all, there's about 4 companies. Oh, Jay Day, of course it helps. There's about 4 companies that produce all the appliances in the country, relative to some of the smaller ones. They just all have consolidated over the years. And Whirlpool puts out a good higher end Whirlpool Gold, whatever, Frigidaire or GE Gallery, those type things. Hey, Tammy. So really, you can get what you're looking for. Don't buy on name or ego. Look, Viking is a very good product. And if you can afford it, get a Viking. But you don't have to have it. You may want it, but you don't need it. You're just heating and cooling food, or not cooling food. You put that in the refrigerator. Biggest thing is just make sure they match, and just make sure it helps to be in the same family. And I do think it matters to a buyer when they see that. So anyway, there's that. The roof, really going into that fixer-upper. We're talking about fixer-uppers and where you blow the budget. One thing is, what appears to be a cheap roof isn't always a cheap roof. You could get a quote that says, hey, we're going to lay one layer of roofing on top of another, and then by the time the work comes around to it, they get up there and for whatever reason, they say, hey, we cannot lay another layer of roofing on this house, or for whatever reason you decide, I want a shingle that is a different type of shingle, and really can blow the fixer-upper budget on shingles of all things. How boring are shingles in the grand scheme of things, right? So, hey, Tara Limbird, the best realtor in all, really true story. top realtor, sells more houses than anybody in the state of Arkansas. Hope you're doing well. Just got back from Chicago, I see. Hope you're doing well. Next one. This is probably the first or second biggest area, which is the kitchen. Tara loves the kitchen, I think. I don't know if you do or not, but she also knows that you can spend a lot of money fixing that kitchen up, or you can spend a little. Look, $5,000 renovation to a kitchen, good. You're probably not going to blow the budget, but do you know how easy it is to spend $50,000 in a kitchen? It is so easy. You can spend $10,000 on a stove. True story. I don't know why you would, but I'm cheap. Actually, I would if I could get some points. Yeah, love the pretty kitchen to watch Nick cook. Yes. Yeah, Nick is a handsome guy, right? Good guy. Get big Arkansas and Ole Miss fan, Nick Limbird. But yeah, you can La Cornue. Is that the brand, Slocum? La Cornue? Of course you would have that. Happens once a year. That's right. He's cooking all that game that he caught, all the venison and all that. But how's your daughter? I bet she had a good time in Chicago. And Slocum, are you still practicing up there? I know you're on the side of buses up there. Oh, a custom range. Excellent. Man, you've come a long way. Like or new. But anyway, so really be careful there. Refrigerators, it's just a refrigerator. A lot of folks want the recess, all that. There's ways to make this stuff happen. But just thinking through that budget and really talking to not only your agent at the time on these renovations, but also talking to a contractor. What is it going to take to do that? And look, if you want the La Cornue range, get the La Cornue range. Just make sure you can afford it and you're not blowing your budget and you're expecting a return of that investment. The next one, electrical. Look, don't try to do, when you're doing your fixer-upper, one way to easily blow that budget is to try to do the electrical yourself. Because Mike Slocum, there he is. Slocum, you might know him as the Alabama Hammer, is right here. He is in D.C., Baltimore, Charleston, West Virginia, Denver, and Joe Jackson. Well, I'm excited about that Joe Jackson, wherever that is. Although he and Tito and all the other Jacksons say, but anyway, you've probably seen Slocum's billboards, you've seen his commercials, so that's funny. But you don't want Slocum talking to you because you did something bad in a house, and you call something to burn down or call somebody to get injured, because he'll come after you. And electrical is one area to do it. Hire a good electrician. It will cost money, but if you're removing all this stuff, really think through the plan before you do it. It's one of those areas, it's not just so easy. It's one thing to say, hey, I'm going to take down this wall. I'm going to run wires here. But now you got to take it through sheetrock. You got to bury it. You have to do something with it, and you have to put it in conduit. Is the old wiring, especially if you're in the old areas of wherever you are. There's knob and tube. There's the old aluminum wiring. Just a lot of stuff you got to think about. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to burn your darn house down. So don't do it, and it's going to cost you a lot more, and your insurance is going to go through the roof, what have you. Now, next one, driveways. Look, it's one thing. If you start seeing major cracks in that driveway, it's one thing. All concrete cracks, and we know it. But if you get in a situation where it is wider than about a quarter's width there, you can stick a quarter down in that, you're probably having some issues where that is slipping a little bit, or if you have any indications that you're sitting on a retaining wall, those type of things, and you see that slipping, look, it's going to go with it. So make sure you get all that on the front end before you buy that fixer-upper, because, look, driveway just probably needs to be repoured, but it may not just need to be repoured. You may have to get a structural engineer out there to make sure whatever's pushing back or pulling or whatever, what have you on it, is not slipping, that we secure that first. We see it a lot of times here in the Birmingham area, because, hey, we're all hill. I hate to say mountain, because you got people on here that, are have real mountains, and we don't have real mountains. We call them that, but we have hills, and our topography's up and down, and so the idea of a real flat lot here in Birmingham is unavailable. So, or if it is, it's fake, right? It's built on fill. The other one is new flooring. Look, Everybody loves a good wood floor, but a wood floor is a wood floor. You don't have to have the Brazilian teak bamboo that was hand scraped from the rural areas of Brazil. Just get their normal hardwoods, and we can stain it. Those type of things. Or if it's a house that most houses in your neighborhood have an engineered wood floor, use engineered wood. Good product, can be refinished once. The other thing that is really interesting, and we're seeing it put in a lot of higher end houses, is this luxury vinyl plank. Who would have thought that somebody in a $600,000 house would find it better? But these folks had a bunch of kids are rough on floors, and they went with this luxury vinyl plank. And what it is basically the product is made out of PVC, and it's really dent proof, it's waterproof, it's really got a lifetime warranty, and looks good. And the other thing is, too, you remember with all of this vinyl, or what do you call it, Pergo, the laminate that we had for years. Basically, you had the same design repeated like 10 times, so you had to make sure the boards were right because you saw the same knot over in the corner that you saw right in the middle of the floor and all those type of things. Well, they literally, with all this new technology, can create a million different images of the wood so that it really looks real. And quite frankly, sometimes you won't know the difference. And a lot of folks are using that luxury vinyl tile as well. And basically, it just clicks in place and can float over any other floor. So that's really interesting there. So watch those things as you go after that next fixer-upper. So there is that. Anyway, Karen, how are you? Late to the party, but you made it. All right. Moving on to... Here's some interesting thing. CBS Market Watch, if you don't follow CBS Market Watch, look, I don't care for CBS, but Market Watch pretty good. It's kind of like NBC. CNBC's okay, right? Anyway, from CBS Market Watch's Morgan Housel, 6 personal financial hacks that aren't easy, but promise a big payoff. Look, I'm telling you, if you'll do some of these things, I swear to you, your income will go up or your savings will go up, because that is what really matters. Once you can get that, first of all, folks, debt, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, consumer debt, all-time highs. Eliminate the debt, all right? I'm going to make that the 7th. Just eliminate debt, and let's work hard to get that eliminated. First one is accepting that living below your means requires suppressing your ego to below your income. In other words, look, when you define savings as the gap between your ego and your income, you realize many people with decent incomes save so little. That's what's crazy, is so many people aren't saving because they want to keep up with the Joneses. And look, my kid has to have everything. I have to do these things, or the other parents are going to think I'm not taking care of my kid. That's crazy, right? Your ego's getting in the way. I have to have a brand new car instead of buying used because of whatever reason. The average millionaire, I think, drives a 2 to 3 year old car. Unless you're Mike Slocum and you drive. Slocum, what are you driving now? Are you driving a Bentley still? But he can afford it, so he can get it. I love this quote from the author about this. Not giving a damn what others think about them is the most underrated finance skill. Isn't that interesting? It is a finance skill to not give a damn what other people think about you, right? So that you don't go make those purchases just so that you can have a thing or something. Because everybody that knows me knows I think it's more important to have experiences and with people and do things like that. There's nothing wrong with making money. It's what you do with it that matters. Think of all the areas that we let our egos get in the way. Cars, homes, kids' sports. I think that's a big thing now, right? Is that we let our egos get in the way. We got to go, my kid is going to play Major League Baseball or Major League Soccer. So, look, there's no indication of it because he's 6. But we're going to spend all of our disposable income on training, all those type things. And really all the kid wants to do is go to the get ice cream and play with his friends at the park. Nothing wrong with that type of thing. The homes, of going into more home than you need. We see this a lot of times with a lot of residents, medical residents that come into town. They they're now a doctor. And so they want to live like a doctor, even though they're not making a doctor's salary yet, right? And so in those early years is when they can really start growing their wealth. And they don't do it because the longer you have to save, the more money, the better off you're going to be long term, right? The next one I think is really important. A spouse who sees eye to eye on spending. If you're not on the same page, is if your spouse has wildly different expectations or relationship with money, then you're going to be in a situation where it's a constant struggle of a push and a pull relative to that money. It's people's relationship with money. And one of the best places, if you're not married yet, is to look at their family of origin. How did they handle money? Because oftentimes that's where those folks are going to get, or your future wife or husband is going to have gotten their habits from, those type things. The other one is don't get a divorce and don't have kids and have a divorce. There's a lot of reasons not to have. You can solve all the problems by daddy staying at home. But the minute you get a divorce and you start having to parse off all this income, it will make a massive difference in your future. Because you spend all that time will have been at least halfway wasted from the time you got married and working till then, because you're going to have to break up all of that, those investments. Anyway, next one. Avoiding trouble to begin with. Hey, look, no one gets out of debt faster than the person who never got in debt in the first place. Pay off the dadgum debts, folks, and don't get into them. Look, you don't need to make many great decisions to do well over time. I promise you that. You just need to consistently not blow it for long periods of time. Look, there are going to be times when you blow it, and you just need to make sure it's very little, right? We all do, what is it Dave Ramsey calls it? Stupid tax. We have stupid tax. We go out there and we buy that car that we had to do. Did we learn from it, or did we continue to do it, right? And find out who your money mentors are. I'm telling you, the key is getting started, and the earlier you start, and it's never too late. I see so many people that get in their mid-60s, right? And they say it's too late. Well, the problem is they're not going to change those habits, and they're going to be out of money in 10 years, and they're not going to know what to do. And they could have changed their life and started those good habits, even though it was late to have extraordinary wealth. They could have done something to get out of that and lived a better life when they turned in the mid-70s. Mr. Arnette, how are you? Good to see you. Use low-status, high-efficiency services. Look, one of the biggest issues I see coming, look, David's not here, so I can talk politics today, right? I think that the 4-year college in and of itself is a broken system, right? It's not that I don't think college education is important. Look, some of my best friends in the industry that I know didn't go to college. I know a lot of people, some of the richest people I know didn't go to college. I'm not saying it's not important, because it teaches you a lot of life skills. But what I will say is the junior college system as we have in Alabama, or the 2-year college, wherever you are, if the difference it makes in the amount of debt that a student has to take on right now by just going to community college, and remember what Chris Rock said, it's called community college because everybody can go, right? And you can get the general credits right on out of the way, save a ton of money. We're talking being able to pay for it in cash versus being able to go. Or if you live in a state like Georgia, hey, make good grades, you go for free. You can start at the big school. But look, it's low status, right? It's not an ego thing. You're not excited that you went to Jeff State, right? I mean, it's not when you go, because they don't have a football team. I mean, we all know football is the most important thing. And it's what got these people into trouble out in California, the nut jobs that paid $500,000. Who would ever do that? But that's another story. Or allowing your child on your dime to go out of state to school, right? If you don't have the money. Again, if you have the money and it's no sweat off your back, great. But it's not. Hold on just a second. I got this light's on a motion detector here. I'll be right back. Let's see. Here we go. All right. This is having only one person here. I got to handle all the logistics here. But anyway, The other one's public libraries, right? Going out instead of buying a book. Quite frankly, the local public library here in our town, I don't read a traditional book anymore, right? But you can borrow from them electronic books like for your iPad, all those type things. Movies. That's how I got on. What is that thing called where you your heritage and all that? You can go back and look. Ancestry.com. They provide a free membership to that. Using things like that instead of paying for Ancestry.com, I went through the local public library. Right? It's kind of embarrassing that I went through, like, to some degree, right? And even within my business, I've had people train using what's called lynda.com, right? The local library provides free lynda.com subscriptions, right? And so it's hard to think of things like that. So think through things in your community where you can use and save a little bit of money. Now, I'm not saying go to the local food bank and start getting food there just because it's cheaper. It would be, but it's not. Anyway, the next one is so funny because I think so many people, I mean, it's just crazy to me. People that I know aren't dumb. They fall for things. You need to turn up your BS radar that screams red alert when promises that of abnormal gains without abnormal sacrifices are offered. There's no such thing as a free lunch. You know, I heard someone say the other day that, you know, that they could get their kid to work for them. Now, this person has no business. That they could get their kid to work for them and hypothetically pay that child and then write off everything they were doing in life. Their ball practices, their uniform, all these, they were going to write off everything, right? Well, that's just not true, okay? There's no way that you're going to be able to do it. The next one is on these flippers, right? That you just come to this seminar and you're going to get rich quick. Now, pay us $1,000 now. Now, you're going to get to that seminar, and guess what? They're going to promise you 100-time returns on your investment. And then they're going to say, well, we gave you most of it now, but for only $2,000 more, we're going to give you the rest of the secrets, right? Look, there's no easy way. There's no easy way in the stock market. There's no easy way to do any of this stuff. The best advice I can give you came from the great ace man, Adam Carolla, who has the #1 podcast in the country. He said, have as many fire hoses filling the swimming pool as possible because one of those fire hydrants is going to dry up at some point, right? So whatever you're doing today may be drying up tomorrow. And so really be thinking of ways to build your income streams. We talked to Slocum earlier. He was talking about all the different markets he was in, right? Because, look, the billboards may not be working. He's just not doing well in D.C., say. He's got Chicago. He's got Denver, all these other places to build his business. Same thing with Jay Day, right? And I know Jay Day doesn't just have sales. He has all these other avenues that he's making money in his business, which is awesome. Also, pick a career that may not be your passion, but pays a decent wage. Look, Steve Harvey, the host of Family Feud, said it best. Look, Steve Harvey said, my passion is golf. But what I really need to do is find God's gift, which was comedy, right? Because he said, my passion's golf, but I lose 28 balls in one round of golf. Doesn't sound right. That's really his gift and where he's going to make his money, right? And you really got to make sure that, you know, what I saw yesterday, the #1 degree not to get is anything in the humanities, right? A theater degree, something like that doesn't pay any money. Making sure that just because you like it doesn't mean it's something you should do or you enjoy it. There has to be something you enjoy that you can make some money at. Because getting a humanities degree and going and working in a local theater may be awesome. But if you need money to feed your family, you need to find that career elsewhere because you're not going to be able to do it unless you make it big. So many people get in these degrees and these jobs. We see it in real estate, right? That you know, the spouse or one of them has a job that just doesn't pay any money, but they got $200,000 of student loan debt because they wanted to be a humanities professor at a community college. Nothing wrong with it, but it's probably not going to pay any money. So, I love what Chris Rock said. He said his advice for kids was, you can be anything you're good at as long as they're hiring, right? So if they're not hiring, you're not going to get a job. So, and you may not like what you do. So anyway, the other quote I like on this is, people who tell you to follow your passion are already rich, right? So, because they're in their passion, but they made it already, right? So anyway, I think it's the best advice there, and where it'll really bring money to you, is find God's gift for you as opposed to your passion, right? What is your gift? Is your gift mowing grass? If it is, great. Be the best mowing grass guy you can. You're going to make a lot of money. What's up, Maury Davis and Katie Mowry? Katie Mowry, one of the smartest people in Birmingham. Boy, she is smart. She's a engineering scientist, wizard of all things. She has found her passion and is good at it. So, anyway, want to talk about a little bit about the stock market right now, right? Stock market, a little mixed day. This, as we said earlier, the G20 summit over in Osaka, Japan, is really just, the problem is the stock market just listens to every word that comes out, and this trade stuff's causing the market to kind of fluctuate. But it only went down. The Dow Jones down 10 today, and the S&P up 10. One of the biggest things weighing that we talked about earlier was consumer debt hitting $14 trillion for the first quarter of 19, which is $1 trillion higher than it was in 2008 when the stock market collapsed, or the market in general, the economic markets around the world collapsed. And so there is a difference, though. We're in a totally different environment there than we were in 2008. GDP is expanding as opposed to contracting. The whole economy was really contracting back in 2008, so won't be there. But it's still going to be a concern going forward as we see that. And relative to affordability and those type things. And if you keep taking those debts out, you're not going to be able to afford that mortgage, and you can't buy that house. So, hey, get out of debt. But there is nothing wrong. And we're going to do a show here coming up where we just talk about travel hacking and how we're able to travel around the world free using a lot of these travel hacks that we've learned over the years, and using the credit card game by paying them off, though. And using the bonuses there to fly anywhere you want to with your whole family, because that's what living's about, right? So anyway, thank everybody for tuning in. Hope everybody has a great week, and next week we'll be back with David. He'll be back here after he, by the way, probably went through 24 golf balls today, and it is hot. I don't see how he did it. It's 100 degrees outside. Anyway, don't forget about the podcast edition. Share it, like it, whatever. Don't forget about the podcast edition. Anywhere you can find great pod, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts. Great stuff there. Anyway, we will see you next week at 4 o'clock. So long, everybody.